Okay. So Lead Angels Network, we are all about startup investing. What exactly that entails? Uh, so a startup is a temporary organization in search of a repeatable, scalable, sustainable business model. Okay. What it means is that we have a small little sapling, a seed, an idea uh, that is in the founder's mind. He creates a small plant out of it, a sapling, and then we as angels and supporters, we help support this uh, small little idea or the sapling so that it can grow into a redwood giant. Now, redwood giant is actually one of the largest trees across the globe. Its diameter at the base could be more than 35 feet. The height, of course, is far more than that. So that is exactly what is the logic of angel investing or startup investing. Because if nurtured well, you could have a small time Amazon which was only doing some bit of shopping of your CDs or books, and now that is like it's a global, it's a behemoth, one of the largest companies. Same with Uber, Facebook, Airbnb, Google, and Twitter, to name a few. In India, I mean, what do we have if we see on the right side? We have tons of problems, lots of problems, and that is exactly what founders are looking at to take care of, to be able to solve those problems. Because if you solve them well and you get a large number of people using your solution, then you have your business case well cut out. Because India continues to be work in progress, and social and cultural changes in India are super strong, new which allow technology usage, adoption of new ideas, new products, new services is quite rampant across India. And demand constraints don't exist because what? We have 1.4 billion population, a sizable portion of the global say population that we have. And if we price it correctly, you have a no holds barred rise in this thing. No wonder, because across all these sectors, if you see below, what happens is, I mean, uh, so apologies for the thing. Very recently, we have moved from 14 unicorns to 15 unicorns. And I think we are at 52 unicorns now, on the path to be, I think it'll be far more than, say, 150 by 2025. Now, if we see how has this path increased, okay? Last year, in the full year 2020, we had 11 Indian startups that became a unicorn. Okay. In 2021, till date, we have nearly, uh, uh, so we've had 15 say, unicorns. Uh, and that is basically because of the pandemic. One of the root cause of this is the pandemic, because pandemic has allowed rapid adoption of digital technologies, not only across businesses and enterprises, but also at personal levels. Okay, so may it be edtech, uh, may it be e-commerce, may it be SaaS, may it be, and one sector that is left to enter into this side in the unicorn club is the agri-tech sector, which we'll be talking about going forward. Okay, so what are the benefits of angel investing? You, of course, have a potential for hyper returns. Estimated IRRs are in the region of 20 to 30%. While you are investing, you are learning about new technologies, new business models, you are getting new ideas, you are interacting with people who are trying to, create a paradigm shift in the way things are happening right now, in the way businesses are done, in the way in the way services are used or the products are used. Okay. Along with that, you have a benevolent advantage of providing guidance to startups and the founders for improving financial and social returns for all stakeholders, and supporting entrepreneurs who are making a difference. So that is a circle uh, or a cycle that we follow at Lead Angels also. We fuel entrepreneur real spirit. We assist early stage investment. We help nurture the portfolio. We help and follow on rounds and M&As. The money so earned is again put to use to again reinvest into startups. What are the challenges that are faced by an angel investor? Well, where does one find quality startups pan India? Okay. How do you evaluate them? Who helps you with the due diligence, documentation, and filings to ensure compliance? Is there someone who will help you with post-investment monitoring or support? And who will ensure timely fundraise and M&A for exits? So those are the challenges which are typically there with lone wolf investors or people who work independently, who invest independently. That's exactly where Lead Angels it comes in. It helps you find your way through the startup ecosystem. We have a full-time team to curate startups and assist in business review. Okay. In any given month, our team is looking at more than 150 startups to, to get three good startups to present in front of you in that month. Okay. We use collective wisdom and leverage the network effect for evaluation. Okay. Apart from that, we have our own, uh, so we have developed our own frameworks, persistent being one of them, which we use to say evaluate it even before it goes to the investment committee. We have professional due diligence and documentation done through third party and to ensure total compliance from the startup point of view. And of course, post investment, we have support for them. We help them in PR, we help them in strategies, we help them in brainstorming, we help open doors, and also we assist in the monitoring of the portfolio. Our lead advisory team that we have, that itself, it helps our say portfolio companies when they're looking at raising the new round. Essentially, the community evaluates while the individual decides. This exactly is the Lead Angels full stack advantage. You have Lead Angels network, which helps in the early stage funding. You have LA management and professional services. It is basically lamps lighting up the way for the startups in terms of their legal, accounting, and documentation services for startups across all stages. And of course, we have lead advisory services, which is the last piece to say, fit into it, wherein we help them raise funds from VCs, PEs, and family offices. And our focus is largely pre-Series A to up to say $5 to $10 million, with sweet spot of say $1 to $5 million. So Lead Angels investment process, how does it happen? We select three opportunities from more than say 150 plus in any given month. That these are of course selected by an investment committee, which comprises of external board members of ours, as well as select senior management at Lead Angels. Based on investor interest, we do the business review, and once that is found positive, that is followed by negotiation with entrepreneurs, and then we get investor commitments, which are aggregated, post which a term sheet is issued to the company. Okay. Legal and financial due diligence is subsequently carried out to ensure all the T's are dashed and the I's are dotted. This is done by an external agency, which is appointed by the deal lead. Once that is cleared, investment documentation takes place, and we have the call for money, which is rolled out. Post-investment, the monitoring and support, along with selected member who will act as investor, director, or the observer on board, happens, which is supported by lead advisory and LAMP states. Again, as mentioned earlier, decisions are solely individual. The LA team handholds and assists you in choosing the right in in making the right investments and helping your portfolio have an edge over other competing startups. What have we done over the past 6.5 years? More than 15K applications screened, 2,000 plus startups have been reviewed by the investment committee, 950 plus deals have been showcased, 45 plus startups have been invested in. And of these, nearly 15 have done a follow-on fundraise or have had an M&A providing exit for some of our investors. Okay. Now, when you are investing in startup, one of the key thing is if you had invested only in one startup or two startups, suppose that basket falls down, all your eggs will break, and you will be left with nothing. Many people make this folly, in investment, that they say that we will invest into one company or we will invest in two companies and see how that pans out. Then we will invest into others. While ideally, startup is a high risk investment mode. And what you should ideally do is diversify your risk, have investments into multiple startups. In any given year, you should have at least you should invest at least 3 to 5 in 3 to 5 companies. You can start with two, but then gain so that in 3 years' time, you invested in minimum 12 to 15 companies. Once you've done that, then post 36 months, if you look back from the 40th month onward, your portfolio value would be anywhere above 2.5 to 3.5 times what you have invested in it. Okay, at the minimum, because all the startups that we are investing in, we are investing with the premise of it could increase from the current valuation to probably 10 times that. And if you have 10 startups which you are doing that, and even if two startups reach that bar, you already hit that 2 cross of your investment factor. So at Lead Angels, we continue to provide you. We have a sector agnostic approach as well as a growth stage or exit timing stage kind of diversification that we say provide. So we've got companies which are high-end or very innovative category creators, like you have, say, Gamerchi. You've got people like Shop Kirana. You got Super Daily, which was a category creator in its time. And apart from that, we get slightly maturer deals for this thing to balance out the portfolio. And that's what we've been doing so far. This is our team. It was founded by Sushanta Mitra, who is the first external CEO of Sign, which is IIT Mumbai incubated. Ian Venkat, who is a partner at Avishkar Frontier Fund. He's a board member. Professor Dhruv Nath, he recently retired as a director on board, say MDI. He continues. He's already authored a book. He's already authored a couple of books, and the book that he's holding has been authored by him and Sushanto combined. That is Funding Your Startups and Other Nightmares. And we got Suman, who's got more than 2 decades of experience of handling finance, strategic planning, and treasury operations. You have me, who has been in the startup ecosystem for more than 2 decades. You have Kruti, who's got 5+ years of experience, and her focus is, say, like F&B and your D2C brands. You got Kunal, who's from IIM Raipur, who's helping us find the right kind of jewels within the startup arena for showcasing to you. We got Fennel Zaveri, who's helping our portfolio company in raising Series A, Series B rounds. And also on the M&A side, you got Tanmay Yadav, who is on the research team. That's largely what it is about us. And so with this, I will come to an end. If you have any questions, please do say note them down. So with that, we come to just one sec. Something is gone. Okay. Okay. Now, so for the agenda for today, we've got with us Nilay Pandey, who hails from Patna. Uh, I mean, briefly, he's a graduate from NIT Rourkela and a PhD from IIT Delhi. He is the founder of Agrix, which is empowering marginal farmers through a combination of shared economy and market aggregation. Nilay is a first generation entrepreneur hailing from a farming background. Nilay, over to you.
Yeah.
Uh, Briefly, if you can introduce yourself, what made you start this? In the meanwhile, I'll start your elevator pitch, say, presentation.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Anish. Thank you all for joining in. So I'm Dr. Nilay. I just completed my PhD from IIT Delhi. And I originally belong to a small village in Bihar, and my family was till like 2004-5 involved in farming. Then we decided to move to Patna because that is what almost all families in my village were doing. And then I left Bihar to pursue my studies. In 2015, I joined IIT Delhi, started working for my PhD. So in 2016 end, it was after 7 or 8 years, I went back to my village, and that was an experience that changed me forever, because I went back to a village that was totally deserted. I couldn't find one person to hang out with. And at that time, about 30 to 35% of the plots in that village were left uncultivated. And when I think of my village, when I left the village in 2004, 2005, was a village that was full of activities. People were growing 2, 3 different crops in a year. And in 2016, that situation was totally different. So that left me thinking what will happen to the villages in the future if the same trend continues. And who will, with the young generation not at all interested in farming, and the currently involved farmers getting older, who will grow food for us in the future. So I have a background in terms of research in plant-based image phenomics, where I use images to ascertain the health of plants, different kind of stresses that the plant might be going in, let's say nitrogen stress, water stress, and how do I quantify these effects and their effects on the net yield of the plant. So I decided, how can I use this technology, the things that I have been working on, to help these small number of farmers who are staying back in the villages to manage their farms much more in a much more efficient way, and create a digital farm management system for them. But the situation is, when I started writing to these block level government employees like district agriculture, block agriculture officers, district agriculture officers, those panchayats and all, I couldn't get any data because they don't have any data. So how do I create that model? And when I went back to the farmers and started talking to them, I realized that 40% of them don't even have any permanent access to smartphones. And one thing that really struck me was one sentence that one of the farmers said, that कि आप तो, like I will use Hindi to do that, say that, कि आप तो बना के हमें दे दोगे, कल को आप भाग जाओगे, हम क्या करेंगे? Because 85% of the farmers in India, the problem arises from the fact that 85% of the farmers in India belong to this small and marginal category, and they are basically doing subsistence farming. So for them to be a part of an experiment or a fancy idea that some IIT guy comes out with is very risky, and most of them will be afraid to do that. So these farmers, they want something between them, amongst them, some physical presence of the company, that so that they can go out, reach out to them, talk to them, and have that confidence. If something goes wrong, we can always go to that person and hold him, that where is my implement that I booked, or where is my agri input that I asked you to supply. So with that, we was the first pivot that we did, that there's no point just creating a digital infrastructure and asking farmers to use that. Let us first go in to the villages, understand the problem firsthand, and then come out with solutions that the farmers need. And over time, we will use this presence that we have in the village, physical presence, to develop technology and take it out to the farmers. So that is how Agrix was formed. And 2017, I met Saurabh and Vivek, who are my co-founders, who were at that time working in the adjacent lab in IT as interns, and they also hail from farming families in Bihar. And in 2019, just to understand the problem of the farmers, we ourselves took a 2-acre land near Saurabh's village and did cultivation ourselves. So the first problem that we faced was the fact that we had to wait for a tractor for about for 15 days. So that is a situation that the farmers have to deal with, on a day-to-day basis. And then we go with them and ask them that, okay, I've created this IoT model, I have created this machine learning model, you use this. So it's like asking a person who is not able to, uh, uh, get proper food for 2 times and asking him that, okay, whether you should be taking multivitamin supplements or not. First of all, we must ensure that he is getting proper food, then we can go with other things. So that is how the idea of Agrix was born. And I will quickly go through, I just have made 4 or 5 slides so that I keep the presentation short and I have more time for interactions.
Okay, so I'll just quickly share that screen. So briefly, this is what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Actually, I would like to show that Agrix, that cluster model. Then I can come to this, the previous slide.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I said, we are creating these farming clusters. The problem that the farmers in India suffer from is the small and marginal nature of farms and the highly fragmented nature of the plots. The usual size of a land holding for more than 85% of the farmers in India is less than 1 acre. So with this level of fragmentation and this level of small land holdings, they neither have the scale to have reliable market linkages, nor they have the chances to go out and ask for agri inputs that are suited for themselves. They rely on local traders who will sell them whatever gives them the maximum profit. So how do we ensure our presence among the villages is by creating these farming clusters where we group in 5 to 6 different villages together. We call them farming cluster. That helps me consolidate these small and marginal farms. And what happens now with this clustering, I'm able to provide a implement rental. Implement rental is not just the tractor, but also the implement that goes with it. Because the tractor in itself is good for nothing. It's just the unit of power source. We have to couple it with some implement, let it be a rotavator, a cultivator, and there are 10 to 12 different implements that I use. And these small farmers who are hardly able to make their living out from agriculture, they can't afford all of them. So what we do, we aggregate what we can from these villages, in terms of agri implements, let it be tractors or implements. Others we purchase ourselves. We create implement bank that serves this 6 to 7 villages, and through this presence, we are able to kind of aggregate the demand to offer the farmers better prices on agri inputs. We are able to aggregate their yield so that we can provide them reliable market linkages. And we can kind of map the demand and supply from different villages so that a tractor that is lying idle in one village may be used by a farmer who is looking for a tractor in his village, but all the tractors are booked. So this is how we create our physical presence, and this is how we create these clusters. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is the Agrix ecosystem that we are building on the ground. Like all these 5 to 6 villages that we bring in one of our clusters, we have one central office there, which called the Agrix Kisan Center. That center manages the entire cluster. We have 1 or 2 permanent employees there. We maintain a small inventory of agri inputs. We maintain a small implement bank there. And in all other villages that form part of my cluster, I have a village level entrepreneur who acts as an Agrix representative there. So this person bridges the gap between that distrust that the farmer have. For example, we also have the app that the farmer can use to book and implement. He can use that to book agri inputs. He can even use that to request an arrangement for market linkage or offtake. But only 2 to 3% of the farmers are using that. Most of them, they would like to approach this representative who is a guy from their own village, and who we are very careful in choosing this particular guy because he is the one who is taking care of our business in that area, in that particular village. So we choose someone who already had a good social presence. That he can be a local level kirana store owner. He can be a tuition teacher who goes from house to house and is well known by the villagers, or he can be someone like an LIC agent. We hire him as a representative. He works on a commission basis. So this farmer will, what he will do, he will go to this representative in his village. He will ask that I need a tractor on this particular date, or I need like 20 kgs of seeds on this particular day. He will then do the booking on his behalf. We provide him elevated access in the app. And this data then comes into what we call that Agrix data pool. We keep a track of implement booking so that we can come out with implement tracking and mapping and supply maps, so that we know in this season.
So those are the details, right? But essentially what you're doing is basically ensuring timely supply of either it is inputs or the tools or mechanization across the board.
Yes.
And that is the ecosystem that you have created so
yes
far.
And in terms of technology, that will differentiate me from other competitors in the future, is that I'm creating a digital map of each and every cluster that I'm working in. Each and every plot within a cluster is being mapped digitally into my ecosystem. We assign a unique ID to that map, and we keep a track of data like what is the farmer's name, his phone number, the area, the soil type, things like that. And all this data goes into what I call my Agrix data pool, that is then used to power my data science and machine learning models that we are building up for yield prediction and demand and supply mapping. And with this level of tech sophistication and tracking, once I am in market linkages, I can provide end-to-end traceability for the produce. I can generate a QR code, and somebody, when he scans that QR code, I will trace him right back to this particular farm, that this grain or wheat that you are holding in your hand has come from this plot in this village. And these were the seed. This was the seed that was used. This was the like agri input that was used. Means I can provide an end-to-end traceability with such level of details that no one else can.
Okay, so I'll just stop this share right now.
Yeah.
And quickly come to our persistent model. Let's
Sure.
see. Let's have a one-line answer to each of these things that we have. Okay.
Okay. So should I also be answering the questions that are popping up in the chat window, or should we keep them for the last?
And yeah, that'll be for the last.
Okay, sure.
Because it is for the whole audience, right? If you just answer
sure.
to that, only some guy will see it.
Okay.
Is my screen visible right now? No.
No.
Yeah, now it is visible, right?
Yes.
Okay, so to start with, what are the problems you felt is that as of now, although there are 500 plus agri startups, there are very few people focusing on the marginal or small farmers. Is that correct?
Marginal and small problem, and involvement across the agri value chain, because we just can't tell him, give them an advisory that you do this and then don't provide them the resources to do it.
Okay. And so your earnings model is number one, through the input that you provide to them.
Yes.
And the implement hiring.
Implement rental is the first thing. We use that as a hook to get the farmers on board, because that's the most sought after service that we are doing. Because we are the people who are providing, like let's say tractors for cultivation. So we also get a data that this particular farmer A or B has cultivated 5 acres of land or 2 acres of land yesterday. Now I will pass that information to my representative in that village, that okay, this particular farmer from your village has gotten 2 acres of land cultivated, and he plans to grow wheat in that. So you reach out to them and offer him our agri input services.
Okay. So coming back to the problem, is the problem also that they do not have timely access to implements as of now? That's why you are creating a bank of
implements. Yeah.
Implements and the mechanization tools. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So earnings model is done. What are the risks associated in your current business model?
In terms of risks, we have risk in terms of, let's say we are dealing with large number of implements. So what if an implement fails? For example, harvesters that we are running, we have only 3 or 4 harvesters in the entire district where we are operating as of now. And one harvester can hardly serve 5 to 6 villages, and there are more than in one district, I think there are more than 1,000 villages. So what if a harvester fails and people have been banking upon us for providing them the harvesting services? We are in a soup there. Then they will start coming
Okay.
to us and complaining. So that is one thing. Another is in terms of market linkages. For example, we want the farmers expect us to take up their produce as soon as it is harvested. But given the limited resources that we have as of now in terms of financials and team, we can't do that. So this time, the farmers themselves lost about 20% of their yield because of the rains that came because of the cyclones.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Next is size of the market. So size of the market, we all know it is
Yes.
350 billion plus is the agri sector market.
Agri sector market, and 85% of them are small and marginal. So that
Exactly.
target market that we are looking at is more than $200 billion in India in a year.
Yeah.
And that is pan India, like across some states like Punjab and all. The majority of farmers in all other states are these small and marginal farmers.
Okay. Interestingly, more than 55% of Indian population, Indian workforce, I would say, is in the agricultural sector, and yet the GDP throughput is not even 16 or 17%. Is that correct?
Yes. And no doubt, like when I went back to my village in 2016, 30% of the plots were left uncultivated because people thought that it's not worth the effort. Okay,
everyone has gone to do engineering.
Yeah, most of them have this model where some of their family members are working in Delhi, Patna, or Mumbai. They send some money back home, and the farmers are doing only what they need for themselves.
Okay.
Because
Okay. So the innovation in your business model, I would say, is the way you are fitting the all pieces around it to make a offering to the
how we are putting in all the pieces of jigsaw together, and the backend that we have, the technology backend we are building, that will help me achieve that level of tech sophistication that will set me apart in the coming 2-3 years.
Right. And I am presuming you already have all the machine learning and stuff within your app, which finds out, which keeps track of, how this is happening, what is happening, what will happen next.
Yeah, we have been, look, the point is we have been able to create the models in the backend, and we have trained them using some dummy data because we don't have enough data yet from the real-time markets. So we got some data from what we are doing from because we couldn't get any data from the government offices or something. Even when we went to have maps for the plots and all, it shouldn't come as a surprise that the last time the maps were updated was in 1976. They gave us this 1976 maps.
Oh, okay. Okay. So maps is a very interesting kind of
thing. My plots that I have in my village, they belong to my grandfather's father, not me or my father.
Oh, okay.
So that's the level of data that the government has.
So given that the market is so large and yet for the agri-tech companies it is so fragmented, how will you get the scalability in your business model? Are you approaching the cluster approach?
Yes, that is why this cluster model is so important, because each cluster that I'm building as of now, starting June, we started with one cluster that was bootstrapped. Then we raised some seed capital, and we were able to complete one cluster and start the second one. Means from June itself, we have been able to set up 2 clusters, and my scale will come in terms of replicating these clusters. And each of these clusters that we make sure that they are self-sufficient, they can work in themselves. That ecosystem within a cluster is self-sustaining, and we intend to replicate those clusters and then use the technology and data models or the data that we are collecting to optimize the operations within the clusters and across the clusters. Over time, we might even create. Yeah, over time we might even.
June, right?
Yes, sorry, your voice was a bit broken.
This is from last year, June. Is that correct?
Yeah, from June itself, despite the COVID and all, we have been. June 2020, we have been able to set up 2 clusters, and this has been a bit turbulent because of the COVID and all, but still we have more than 3,000 farmers as of now associated with us, and we are serving more than 9 villages through these 2 clusters. And we have been able to, make a per farmer, generate a per farmer wallet share up to 22,000 Compare that to about 1400 to 1600 that Dehat claims to make. So we have that level of engagement with the farmers.
Okay. So why do you think your team is most appropriate for this?
Yeah.
For
So first of all, in terms of technology, I have two PhDs from IIT Delhi, me and and Sandeep. Sandeep has also worked in Samsung. He has worked for device-to-device communication. So when it comes to IoT sensors and all, Sandeep has an experience that will help us propel forward. I have myself a background in image-based plant phenomics where I can use the satellite images or even RGB images because the handheld cameras are the most common mobile cameras now we have. And we have Mr. Ranveer, who has worked for more than 10 years as a backend developer, backend developer in companies like Chegg and IDFC First Bank, Reliance. So in terms of technology, we have good. And in terms of operational experience, we have Saurav and Vivek, who are my co-founders, who have like their entire family is still doing cultivation. Saurav's father still grows over 5 acres of land. And Saurav and Vivek are the people going from villages to villages. And we also have a good team of advisors and mentors on our board, people who have more than 30 years of experience in agri businesses, people.
Okay.
And yeah. So we have both the experiences.
What are the entry barriers? Why?
Yeah, first of all, entry barrier is, how do you bring the farmers on board? Because like I said, most of them, they are doing sustenance farming. So they're very afraid to do anything different. So that is where my implement rental thing comes into role, because they need the implements. For example, like I said, till now, what was happening for harvesting, they had to wait for 15-20 days because the harvesters have to be brought all the way from Punjab. And if some Punjab and the driver or operator has to come from Punjab, and if last year there was lockdown and people had to, go here and there in search of manual labor. So how do I ask them to start using me? Because they have been gotten their hands burnt many times by some other local level shop owners or local level traders. So getting the farmers on board and asking them, for example, this year, for the first time, about farmers over 200 acres of land, they grew the third crop season within 1 year with our help. But motivating them to do them and all has been a challenge.
Oh, that's an interesting point. So you are adding one more crop to their
Yes.
growing cycle.
This is means for over 200 acres of land, we have been able to increase the net yield of the farmer by up to 30 to 40%. Because we till now, what was happening that each season they will waste 10 to 15 days waiting for one implement or the other implement. That means they wasted almost 1 month during the Rabi and Kharif seasons. And in the summer, they only had 1.5 and 2 months to grow something that was not long enough duration to do anything. So what they did, they left the field uncultivated, and then they will wait for the monsoons to come so that they can start laying up the nurseries for paddy and all. So what we did, we saved the farmers 10 to 15 days each season, and we made them make sure that they have the availability of seeds like summer moong. This is called the summer green gram. That seed is not available in the locality. So we had to tie up with National Seed Corporation to provide that a specific seed. And we had to give that seed for free to the farmers that, okay, you go and take the seeds from us, you grow it. And once you are able to sell it to the markets, you pay us back. But because of the entry barrier, they won't take the risk. Okay, that what if I put the money in the seeds and it doesn't grow? So we had to put that risk in, take that risk ourselves, and it has been very successful. More than 200 acres of farmers, they made about 30% to 40% more depending upon the yields that they had. And now we have also like exclusive distribution rights for 2 districts for the National Seed Corporation products.
Oh, okay. So basically, you're saying you enter through the implement tools, and then since you know that guy has used it now he needs seeds. You get him seeds. Now his crop has grown, so he needs a harvester.
Yes.
He has harvested, so he needs to sell it right now. So you are catching him across the value chain. Is that correct?
Yes. And also one thing, even if I don't keep a track of the data that I'm doing using my digital backend, even if I'm not doing that, let's consider the case of market linkage. So first of all, he has to harvest the crop, so that, then only he can take it to the markets. And we are the people who are doing the harvesting. We are able to get this information that how much the farmer is.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. let's say there is another competitor who is in market linkage. The farmer will ask us to harvest it, then we will supply it to their home or wherever he is storing it. Then he will reach out to that market linkage guy. So we have that information at least 10 to 15 days before anyone else has.
Okay. Okay. And niche that you're operating in, we understand. Are you planning to be only in the Bihar, Jharkhand area, or
No.
what are the other jobs?
No, we, like I said, these clusters are the things that we are going to replicate to achieve a scale, and we have the potential to scale them pan India. And in the next 4-5 years, we are planning to have more than 200 clusters in at least 5 to 6 different states in Bihar and outside Bihar. And with these 200 clusters, I will be able to cover a total cultivated area of more than 3 lakh acres, and I will be able to reach out to almost 500,000 farmers. And that will help me even reach out to an annual revenue of in excess to 900 CR.
Oh, okay. So what is your traction right now?
We closed financial year 2021 with about 50 lakhs in revenue, and that we could have done better, but for the first 6 months, we were basically bootstrapping the clusters and all. And we also lost one season because of the COVID, and we started in June. And March, April has been good seasons for us. We have been clocking in on an average 15 lakhs per month in revenue. May was again a bit down. We only managed to do about 6 lakhs because of the lockdowns. And this time the situation was really bad in the villages.
In the villages, it is pretty bad.
Yeah. Last time we were spared because of the lockdowns and all. This time the situation is really bad. Now it's okay. Now we are again starting to get the traction. So we in total we have served up to more 3,000 farmers, and we are operating in 9 villages now. So across 2 districts in Bihar. Yeah.
Last year you've done 50 lakhs, and this year you've already done
more than we already have done about in April and May we have done more than 22 lakhs already.
Okay. So 22 lakhs you've done, and if June is any indication, you might add another 15 to 20 in that.
At least 10 to 15 lakhs, yeah.
Okay.
Because we are still in the process of getting over COVID and getting up the momentum.
Okay. And the current fundraise that you are looking at is basically to expand the clusters and
build up the team. Yeah.
Having your own implement base. Is that correct?
Yeah. Setting up a cluster itself includes having an implement bank, because this cluster will act as a independent entity. And then we want to build up the team that will help me reach out to more farmers and manage the on-ground operations, because we are operating right at the bottom of the pyramid, right? So we can't have that without involving people.
Okay. I think that is the persistent analysis for all who were attending. Now, very quickly, Rajesh Ranjan asked which village and which district are you
from, or are we operating in?
Are you operating in? I think.
No, I will answer both the questions. No issues. I am from Siwan district of Bihar. Means that district usually people assign that with Sahabuddin, but that is also a district from where Dr. Rajendra Prasad came. And in terms of operations, we are operating in Nawada and Begusrai district of Bihar.
Okay. Mr. Verma, can I have your full name? Yes, we are evaluating it for investment. Anita Jalan, I think, is that Ankur? Or is that?
That's me.
Hey, Ankur, how are you?
I'm good.
Has the ecosystem been developed anywhere till now? Yes, they have.
Yeah, in Nawada district, we have a fully functional cluster. In Begusrai, we have not yet able to fully complete the cluster in terms of implement profile and all, but in terms of agri inputs and some implements, we have been able to do that. And we also have been able to bring in other tractor owners, other implement owners on board with us.
Okay. So Raghav Chadda is asking, how do you manage to trade off between scaling up across micro markets versus penetrating further in the markets? So Raghav, I think what he's doing is he is making himself everything to the small niche of that one cluster that he's operating in.
Yeah, actually, I would like to explain that we have basically 2 levels of a scale that is coming. One scale is within the cluster, and another scale is a scale by replicating the clusters. So within the cluster, the scale is managed by the cluster level team itself. So that is how we are able to reach out to more farmers, bring in more village level entrepreneurs on board. And then we, in terms of achieving the overall scale, we go on replicating these clusters.
Right. And I think, see, uh, so one of the key things for any startup is that first you can become a successful startup only if you move from a plan A to a plan that works before your resources run out. So
Yeah.
one way is you can start spending and have 10 clusters at one time, and you may not get anything out of that. And and you you finish off all the say money that you had. Okay. What they're doing,
Actually,
they are ensuring that each cluster becomes self-sufficient. Then they move on to, so they started with 2, now they'll move to 5, from 5 to 10, from 10 to 20. That is the way they
we what we do when we are planning to go into a virgin area, what we do, we start with something that we call half clusters, where we just set up an office, one employee who does some market analysis, reaches out to farmers, and starts interacting with farmers with some basic services. And within 3 to 4 months of setting that half cluster, we convert that to full cluster.
Okay. Okay. So, so how many farmers are enrolled till now?
About 3,000.
Huh?
3,000.
3,000 farmers, Sachin. Nitin is there with us. How do you manage, how do you manage implementation availability, as many with same crops will have similar requirements?
Yeah, that is one thing. But within a cluster, let us say there's one paddy season. So paddy season is particularly special because we will have a surge for demands just after every rains. So there the demands are more or less synchronized. But again, the point is, since I am working with a cluster of villages, all of these villages mostly they have 2 or 3 different types of soils. For example, one village might have a clay soil. One village usually has like sandy or soft soil. So the clay people, once it rains, they will wait for 1 or 2 days so that the water percolates a bit down. But the people who have sandy soil, they will want the implements the same day. So what I can do, I can source all the resources to those villages that have sandy soil, and then bring them back to these villages that have like clay or the hard soil after 1 or 2 days. So we get a 1 or 2 days margin between the villages, and that is how we are able to manage.
Okay.
This
So
is where
Nitin,
this clustering approach really helps us. Like we can source in resources from 5 to 6 different villages to a particular village that needs it immediately.
okay. So Nitin, this is as compared to, if I have to ask for a harvester, so like when I was in Rajasthan, I used to see, in the harvesting season, by the droves, you used to see harvesters coming from Punjab to Rajasthan, and जैसे ही वो खत्म होता है, by the droves they are going. Now they're there only for that segment. किसी का भी एक दिन इधर एक दिन उधर होता है, so that goes all ori. While here, and you may have to wait for 10 to 15 days also for that,
Yes.
equipment.
No, actually, what we do because of this cluster-based approach, we are also able to bring in artificial time slotting between the villages. For example, when my harvesters are running, I make sure that like there's 5 to 6 days different between like a group of 2 or 3 villages, so that the cultivation pattern is itself time slotted.
Okay.
Because I'm the person who is controlling the cycle of cultivation throughout my
yes. So you start with the sowing and the.
Yes. So what I will do, I will time slot like for 2 villages. Then in the next week, I will do 2 villages. Next week, I will do 2 villages. So there's 1 week gap between two villages.
Got it. Thank you.
In the meanwhile, Ankur has again asked, how many of these 3,000 farmers are active users of your services and equipment?
Look, all these 3,000 farmers that I've asked, about 2,000 of them are like means are using at least two or more of our services.
Okay.
And 3,000 are the one who use like sometimes implement, sometimes agri inputs, and sometimes they reach out to us to do market linkage. Frankly speaking, we have not been able to do the market linkages to a scale which we would like to do because of the team and financial constraints that we have, because we have to put in money into the market for 10 to 15 days. Because market linkages, we have to pay the farmers upfront, and then we get the payment from the companies to whom we are supplying by after 10 to 15 days.
So coming back to the thing, out of 3,000, all are active users?
Yes.
Okay. How do you, Sachin Verma is asking, so by the way, for your information, Sachin is, he is heading technology infrastructure at Olam International. I'm sure you know what is that.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you plan to deal with current middlemen who have long-term association with farmers?
Yeah, these current middlemen, first of all, that is where my implement rental comes in, because these middlemen are not providing them implements. So for example, there are some local shop also. If the farmer is hiring my tractor mounted sprayer for spraying some pesticides or herbicides on the crops, he will buy from me only, not those guys.
Hmm. Okay.
And also my prices are at least, for in terms of agri inputs, my prices are 5 to 6% lower than the local prices. My implement rental costs are 10 to 15% lower than already existing tractor owners.
Oh, okay. Is that because of shared economy and market aggregation?
Yeah, first of all, the local tractor owners, they will have one or two implements, and most of the time they are running their tractors on road by, they are working from some brick manufacturing facility, some godown or something. We have an entire implement bank, so we make sure through those implement bank that my tractors are employed throughout the year. It starts with cultivation, then inter-row cultivation, then de-weeding, then spraying with using tractor mounted sprayers, then harvesting using tractor mounted harvesters. We don't buy all full-fledged harvesters because that will be an overkill in terms of spending the money.
Okay. Okay. So bootstrapping is running in the veins.
Yeah. Because after the harvesting is done, I can bring down my tractor and use it as a normal tractor.
True. So Rajesh is asking, someone like me with degree in horticulture is doing investment and not farming.
Yeah.
Rajesh, could you? Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. He is.
You got it, I think. Leave it.
Okay, sorry. So we have got horticulturists also who are not farming as of now. We'll get you back into farming, Rajesh. We'll get you there.
No, because of our clusters, I know at least 3 people who are working in for some small jobs in Delhi. They have went back and they're working as managers and all.
Interesting. Going back to reverse brain drain, jo kehte hain.
Yeah.
Right. Raghav Chadha is asking, as per a recent report, TAM was $24 billion for Indian agri-tech sector. Can you explain a high-level overview of your TAM estimate? Raghav, I trust. See, it will be derived from this $24 billion only, because the total market is said 350 of that. The usage of implements and other things, and helping in support services for buying agri inputs or you're selling your produce would be in the 10 to 15% bracket only. So I think it should be part of this $24 billion. Now it all depends on how many clusters you are able to take over and at what speed you take them over.
One point I want to mention at this point.
Yes, please.
Yeah, they like even Mahindra or TAFE tractors, they had their implement rental services, like TAFE has JS Farm Services. So what they tried to do, they wanted to create a Ola of tractors or Uber of tractors. So that won't work. You have to have your management at the ground, and you have to go with some implements owned by you, some implements owned by the local tractors. How do you mix them? How do you use them? So and we also have convoluted our implement rental with agri input sale and market linkages. So that's why our revenue keeps on flowing, while JS services didn't work. They just kind of created an app where somebody can register their tractor, and then if the farmer needed tractor, he can use that app or call on a particular number, and they will just go and relay that particular request to a nearby tractor owner, to that particular farmer. So that won't help, because like I said, only 2% of the farmers have used our app.
So the way I'll give an analogy to this is, one is Google started out with a search engine or just a search bar, right?
Yeah.
And today, most of the people are providing that independent email separately or search bar separately or AdWords separately. While you are planning to be like Google, you're providing all services inclusive in one, wherein one relates to another and another leads to another. Is that correct?
Yeah. And if you look at government data and all, we were really shocked when we got the maps and all downloaded from the government data, right? Like the last update was 1976, and when we overlapped using image processing technique that map on Google Earth, the plots that were one plot in 1976, they have been further fragmented into 4 or 5 different plots. Okay. Right. So that's the level of data, means lack of data that the government has, and I don't know how they are building up these schemes and all.
Right. Rajesh is asking, when did you conceptualize this idea?
Like I said, when I went back to 2016 to my village, after coming back, I started working on this. I followed company like Ola, not Ola, it's a Dole Food Company, and other like Hello Tractor in Africa, and how they are doing that. And in 2017, I met Saurabh and Vivek, and and then we started working on it. And that was the first pivot. We wanted to create that digital farm management system. But then we thought that we are creating we are giving an answer to a question that doesn't exist.
Okay, got it. So I think there is a lot of thought that has gone into creating some food for all the rest of us. I mean, Ankur is asking, in basic terms, are you the middleman for all the farmer needs? Yes.
Yeah,
I think you are.
You can look at if you want to take that perspective. Yeah.
What is your biggest revenue channel as of now?
As of now, it's implement rental, but once we are working in our full capacity and we are doing market linkages to the full extent, the market huge, linkages right? Will be huge, but the margins are very less there.
That the margin, yes, of course. What's the value proposition being created? Sorry, did someone have this thing? What's the value?
This is Narendra Mehta. I just want to know, whether do you have a regular contract with the customers that you are supplying from farmers chain?
We have MOUs with agri-food manufacturers like UPL, DCM Seram. They just provide their agri inputs to our centers directly from their warehouses. In terms of farmers, we don't have any agreement with farmers. The point is they are like 1 acre, 2 acre farmers. They don't even know the idea of contracts.
Yeah, I understand that, but having
not with the farmers. They don't have any contract with the farmers.
Having a MOU with UPL.
Yeah.
Do you think what is the burn on your profitability, since you are not supplying to the actual consumer but to the company who
we are supplying to the consumers. Farmers are the consumers. We are taking from UPL, supplying it to the farmers.
Narenji, they are buying equipment, produce fertilizer, pesticide, and they are providing it to the farmers.
To the farmers.
They don't have any contracts.
On farmer side, we don't have any contract. They are small and marginal farmers. They will run away from contract.
Tons of questions. Nilay, I think tons of questions. Let's run quickly through them.
Yeah.
Utkarsh, let's get into a dialogue post this. I'll be putting my number and things over here, and we will be having the presentation next week. Sachin, do you have the land lease model? Narenji, could you mute, please?
Sorry.
Do you have land lease model to farming by Agrix? Are you planning to do that?
We will do that once we have some good team and skill, but not now because that's very engaging. Yeah, that's very engaging.
Okay, do you have land lease model? Then Rajesh, Pan India, when is this planned? I think that would be post Series B.
Yeah. Okay. At least for the next 2 years, we want next.
How do you tackle language barriers? Probably I could help you in that. We've made some multilingual your customer service investment.
Look, the point is we are already getting LinkedIn requests and all from people across India to start clusters there and work with them. So the word of mouth, for example, even in areas where we are operating, 95% of the leads that we are getting is through word of mouth. We have to spend very less on marketing and all. And in terms of expansion, we have like almost 30-35 requests from different districts in Bihar and even from Andhra, from Punjab, from Rajasthan that why don't you start your clusters here? We will work with you as manager and all. So we are also planning to get into some sort of partnerships for opening this cluster so that our capex comes down.
Yes, I think, and at Lead Angels, we'll have a couple of guys who may like to partner on this.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of investment is needed for each cluster? All these details are slightly, distinct. Nitesh, please join us on we will take you through the formal presentation. Please leave your contacts with Adil and know more about us. For all people who are here, apart from who are already existing Lead Angel members, if you could also just sign the feedback form just fill up the feedback form, how you like this talk. And some more questions are there. Anyone's question not answered? What kind of investment is needed for each cluster? I'll quickly move on. You being from Siwan, why Nevada or Begusarai?
Saurabh and Vivek are from those districts and they have their families working there.
Right.
We will start next cluster in Siwan also. We have already bookmarked one center.
सीधी बात है, अपने घर पर तो होना ही चाहिए ना.
Yeah. We already have like bookmarked about 15 prospective locations because through people who reaching out to us or people being contacting us through our business partners.
Hanisha, can we connect later on this? This is slightly detailed. I don't think he'll be able to answer it right now. I'll help you with the answer.
So, Manish. And Nile, we can contact separately also.
Yeah, sure.
Is the implement bank for each cluster built by buying them or long-term rentals? Of course, Nitesh, it's a given piece here. And
some of them are bought by us. Like, I will just give one statistics here that only 4% of the tractors that are being sold in India as of now are more than 50 HP in power, and of which 90% are sold in Punjab. So if you consider rest of India, only 2% of the tractors that are being sold as of now are more than 50 HP in power. And the implement bank we maintain, about 40% of those implement require more than 50 HP. So we have to buy those tractors because we can't source them from locally available tractors. We can't aggregate resources that don't.
On EMI, right?
Yeah. That's why it means buying means buying on EMI means obviously.
Exactly. It is not. So Nitesh, it is not a.
So we are basically trying to aggregate as much as we can from the existing resources, but we can't aggregate resources that don't exist.
Just an interesting fact. I was speaking to someone in Kolhapur who has a farm, a huge farm over there. They said, "हमारे यहाँ के जो farmers अभी तक वो they literally take a bori, sack full of money, and they go to the place and हाजी tractor दे दो."
Yeah, we ourselves had to wait. हमें खुद 15 दिन wait करना पड़ा, right? When we were doing that pilot project for over 2 acres.
By buying done, are all enrolled farmers active in consuming your services? Yes.
Yeah.
If the implement breakdown, as you mentioned earlier, is the risk to the business at the brink. Going forward, they'll start keeping some inventory for this thing.
Yeah, we already like for tractors and other implements that we buy from local dealers, we don't have any issue because they do the maintenance on our part. For harvesters and all that we source from Punjab, we had this issue because some technician has to come all from the way from Punjab. So we have decided to build up our own in-house maintenance team by partnering with the harvester manufacturer. And this August, we will be sending 3 people from our team to learn the trade of maintaining and doing basic maintenance of the harvester to these harvesting manufacturing facilities. They will work there for 1 month and come back and work with us.
Okay. Is this pay per use or subscription model?
Pay per use.
Pay per use.
Farmers will not pay even 150 rupees as a subscription. Let me be very clear.
I know that.
Yeah.
So me is asking, what is the total capital raise so far? Total capital raise that is confidential right now. We will share more details when we get into.
Yeah, we raised seed funds, but how much we raised is confidential.
Okay. So, right now they are looking at around 2 crores.
Yes.
Okay, and we should be able to help them. Have you also thought about selling the produce? Yes, that is exactly the market linkages that they are talking about.
And in coming days, means we will be able to generate this QR code for the produce that's coming out of our ecosystems, where if somebody scans that QR code, we will take him right back to this plot. Okay, this thing came from this particular plot in this district, district of Bihar, and this was a seed that was used, and this was like 70% chemical, 30% organic. We will be able to give this level of end-to-end traceability.
Okay. So I'm just noting down my numbers. And Adil, if you could put down your numbers also, anyone who's interested in the membership.
Sure.
And you can put the feedback form also. Anyone would like to ask last question on a one-on-one basis? Something short. Aslam ji, welcome. Would you like to ask anything?
Are you guys looking open to strategic investments?
We could talk about this, Raghav. I noted this thing. I'll be calling you. Just send me your numbers and we can have a call. I put my number to everyone. Okay, wait. Yeah, so that's my number. And for others, you can catch me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn.com/in/Johari. Okay, so we three are here. You could reach out to any one of us. And Raghav, if you could send me your numbers, we can have a talk after this.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. We'll give you a direct message on this chart.
Sure. Okay. Anyone else? So for everyone's benefit, Hanisha was an investor in Hello Tractor in Africa. Would you like to share something, Hanisha, on that?
Yeah, sure. What would you like to know?
I mean, briefly. I mean, how did you go about it? I mean, in 2 lines, how did it pan out?
So I mean, like Nilay mentioned, the idea is to reach out to smallholder farmers with 1 hectare or less of holding, and what do they need most is mechanization, because there is a lack of usage of for people who do own the tractor. The tractor is lying unused for upwards of 70% of the time often. So how do you bridge that kind of gap? And that's where I think Hello Tractor came in. We invested in them in Kenya. And working across, I'll have to look back at my numbers. It's been over a year and a half since that investment.
Okay.
But I mean, like, the idea was basically that since they were working more on the IoT side of things, where they can go to anybody with an existing tractor, plug this in, and bring a tractor onto the ecosystem. It ends up, in short, becoming sort of like Uber for tractors. So you're just doing that marketplace there. In that case, they were largely doing the marketplace piece, and I don't think they ever ventured into any kind of agricultural inputs and market linkage.
Yeah.
So yes, rightly said. In India, one size fits all typically doesn't work. Most of the people, at least at the farmer level, they want minimum resistance and least friction. So, ek jane se, once they rely on one person, they would like to use them for everything. That is what I think Nilay has been able to manage and do over there.
And also one thing I would like to point out that, like I said, only 2% on and average tractors in India have a 50 HP. So the same implement which can run using a 40 HP tractor in a soft soil will require more than 50 HP in a hard soil. So how do you map that? Because you don't want to do an overkill in terms of tractor power. So our plot mapping
comes in.
Yeah, our plot mapping and maintaining a profile of the soil, we are able to send a 40 HP tractor to a plot that needs 40 HP, because usually the change in the soil profile is also not abrupt. So we are sending in that particular area, that tractor can almost serve that entire area for the timing, that particular area of that particular village. So we are able to map the right tractor implement with right tractor HP to the right plot.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nilay, for your time on this. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this workshop and getting to know the agri sector. Hopefully, we will enhance this 17%, 16% GDP, which is coming from agriculture, to probably looking at, say, doubling it in the next few years.
Yeah.
If we are able to utilize in a better manner, provide better efficiency, provide more timely inputs for all the farmers and the other, say, operators in the whole agricultural say, supply chain market, basically.
M.S. Swaminathan once said that the future world will be dominated by people with grains, not guns. So yeah.
True, very true. I mean, guns came because people wanted to
grab onto somebody else's grains, right?
It's a very crazy cycle, right? Conflict and hunger are so inexplicably linked that I mean, like, let's see if grains can solve it. Yeah.
Right. And so we have Pankaj Khanna also with us, who is the first level, pre-seed investment he's done into agrics. Pankaj, 2 lines from you.
Yeah, thanks, Manish. I think it was a very, very kind of interesting call we took, very non-standard one, simply because the passion we found in Nilay and team to come back to their roots despite reaching altars of IIT Delhi and all of that. Most people like to be in cubicles and create unicorns. I think they were trying to get back to the roots and really solve a problem. And
Sure.
that passion really excited us. And that's what I think is one of the things. And then obviously rest is obviously you've already heard a lot about. Thanks.
Right. Okay. So let's see if we have another great company in the making, and let's see how much Lead Angels investor get interested into you, Nilay. So thank you so much, everyone, on your time. My numbers are listed below. To those who want to note it again, 99827 44411. Happy to connect with you guys. Adil at leadangels.in, ADIL, or Manish at leadangels.in. Happy to take your request. Any further questions, please reach out to us. We will help you get the answers. Okay. We will be rolling out the pitch. Formal pitch will happen next week, and we should be looking at this. Hopefully, we should be able to gather enough interest to get Nilay as a portfolio founder, as one of our portfolio founders. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, have a great weekend and stay safe.
Thank you all.